There is no other starter Pokemon with a more confusing history than Empoleon. Throughout the years, bizarre decisions for its stats, move pool, typing, and abilities have left casual and competitive players alike puzzled about what Game Freak was cooking. As you'll learn throughout the next however many minutes, not even they were sure what to do with our favourite 5'7" chicken on the battlefield. We begin in 2006. Empoleon debuted in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl as the final evolution of the Piplup line alongside the Grass starter Torterra and Fire starter Infernape. What was so cool about these starters at the time was their uniqueness. Torterra became the series' first ever Pokemon to have both the Grass and Ground type, while Infernape definitely became the first Fire and Fighting starter Pokemon to ever exist. Empoleon also made waves as the first ever Water and Steel type Pokemon, proving that not all metal in the Pokemon world is rusty. While this unique type combination was enough to pique some players' interest, those that dug deeper ended up slightly confused. See, while the other two starters learnt level up moves that allowed them to make the most of their secondary typings, Empoleon came up short. The Penguin only naturally learnt one Steel type move in Metal Claw, a move that not only uses Empoleon's middling physical attack stat, but also has only 50 base power. Both Torterra and Infernape learn 100% accurate secondary typing moves with 100 and 120 base power respectively, right after evolution. Meanwhile, this guy gets a move that is only 10 base power stronger than the move Piplup comes out of the egg knowing. And it's not even 100% accurate. It wasn't just a lack of steel moves. Half of these level up moves have absolutely no source. From level 24 to 51, you are not picking up anything useful. I mean Swagger, Fury Attack, Mist. What does Mist even do? And don't get me started on Whirlpool. I remember seeing this move on Dawn's Piplup as a kid in the anime and thinking it was some sort of weapon of mass destruction, only to find out in game it has a base power of 15 and an accuracy of 70. So if you wanted a good steel type move on Empoleon, or good moves in general, you would need to search for a technical machine or two. Luckily the game makes it quite easy for you by giving you the HM for Surf, the TM for Grass Knot, and the TM for Flash Cannon by progressing through the story naturally. I can't emphasize how much having high damaging moves that use Empoleon's much greater 111 special attack upgrades its usefulness in an in-game playthrough. You could argue that it was never all that important to make Empoleon's steel typing work offensively. Instead, players should focus on the defensive value it brings. While that's true, it wouldn't be without its downsides. Empoleon would solidify its special attacking tank status by gaining resistances to Normal, Bug, Flying, Rock, Ghost, Dark, Psychic, and Dragon, plus immunity to Poison and the removal of a Grass type weakness. It would, conversely, gain a weakness to Fighting and Ground while also losing its Fire resistance. This sounds like a positive trade-off, but in actuality, those types are some of the best defensively. Almost every Pokemon that can shake the ground with Earthquake will shake the ground with Earthquake. And don't get me started on the fighting weakness. You know how embarrassing it is to be weak to not only the Grass type in your starter trio, but also to the Fire type one too? That being said, Empoleon has been given the tools to overcome these setbacks, such as the ability to learn Stealth Rock and solidify its role as a tanky special attacker that was frequently used in competitive play, synergizing well with other popular picks such as Tyranitar and Gengar. But it appeared Game Freak would have other ideas as to what role they wanted Empoleon to have. For one, its Pearl and Platinum Pokedex entries speak of sharp claws that can cut icebergs in two. There's probably a Titanic joke in there somewhere. Empoleon can also inexplicably learn Swords Dance by Level Up, a setup move that doubles the user's physical attack stat. Combine that with the array of physical attacks it learns, including Aqua Jet, Drill Peck, Earthquake, Shadow Claw, and Rock Slide, it appeared Empoleon was somewhat being pushed into being a physical setup sweeper, cleaving through teams like they were heading towards the Titanic. There's where the joke goes. This obviously clashes with what the Pokemon community thought Empoleon's best role was. I mean, don't get me wrong, 86 physical attack isn't bad, but it's not good either. It's at least better than Talonflame. Although unlike Talonflame, Empoleon was also extremely slow and wouldn't have to rely on weak Aqua Jets to not be revenge killed easily. There are much stronger and faster physical water setup sweepers such as Gyarados and fellow starter Feraligatr that don't feel like their massive special attack stat is being neglected. But perhaps I'm reaching here. Of course, Game Freak wouldn't try and sabotage one of its own starter Pokemon. Well, we'd have to wait until Generation 5 for that answer. Pokemon Black and White would introduce a lot of new ideas to the franchise, like Ice Cream, Child Neglect, and of course, fresh starter Pokemon. The water-type Oshawott would evolve into Samurott, whose design elements would all indicate it was best suited as a physical setup sweeper. Though admittedly its special attack was still higher and it was still kinda slow, the combination of 100 base physical attack, Sword Stance, Aqua Jet, and Mega Horn for coverage would make Samurott far more offensively geared for the task of sweeping than Empoleon. Ah, so it was all just a false alarm. Probably. It seemed this was the water starter Game Freak wanted to be physical, and so Empoleon settled down, continuing where it left off in Generation 4. As for any changes, Happy Feet would only receive minor tweaks like the addition of the attack Scald to its move pool. This lack of action is reasonable considering it was not available in Black and White without a transfer from a copy of Diamond, Pearl or Platinum. Well, having said that, there was one change. Or should I say, an addition. Pokemon Black and White sequels added hidden abilities to almost every Pokemon. After years of Pokemon only having access to the same one or two passives, these hidden additions gave new opportunities for Pokemon to have another shot at competitive viability. This was especially relevant for starter Pokemon, because they had all been stuck with the same copy-paste ability forever. Blaziken went from a slower but stronger Infernape to being a better Infernape thanks to its new ability Speed Boost. And while it won't be available until Pokemon X and Y, Serperia's hidden ability Contrary, paired with the move Leaf Storm, would turn it from one of the weakest starters to one of the strongest overnight. So then, what ability did Empoleon get? It got Defiant. Okay, don't get me wrong, Defiant is a great ability that boosts the holder's physical attack by 2 stages when one of its stats is lowered. It's just not a great ability on Empoleon for every single reason I listed previously. I mean, there's literally an ability in the game that's the same as Defiant, but boosts special attack instead. Understandably, the community was largely baffled by what Game Freak was thinking here. It seemed that even after the release of Samurott, Game Freak were once again trying to force the Penguin into the physical box. They're really trying anything and everything instead of giving it a physical attack stat over 90. To cope with this weird reality, some players just pretended Empoleon's hidden ability didn't exist, and kept using them as usual. Due to the new influx of viable water attackers such as hidden ability Politoed and Keldeo, others experimented with more defensive Empoleon sets, using that steel typing to full effect and swapping power for more survivability. I suppose different Penguin enjoyers had their own methods for reconciling with the wasted potential for the remainder of the 5th generation. Generation 6 brought changes to Empoleon's kit that would both increase and decrease its viability. For one, Game Freak decided that Metal can't block out ghosts or edginess, and removed Steel's resistance to Dark and Ghost moves. Conversely, the introduction of the Fairy type would make Empoleon's Steel typing a bit more useful offensively, since apparently, Pixies cannot handle Steel Beams. There were signs though that new Pokemon power creep was rusting away Empoleon's competitive viability. Faster and stronger special water type Pokemon like Volcanion and Mega Blastoise kept cropping up, and outshined the Penguin offensively, while Empoleon faced stiff contest in more defensive roles from Suicune and Milotic. Not only were the aforementioned pairs safe from a glaring ground and fighting weakness, but they also had viable methods of restoring their own HP through rest and recover. Something that's both very important for a defensive Pokemon, and something that Empoleon sorely lacked. Fortunately, the move Defog being buffed from complete uselessness to removing entry hazards and protective screens, gave Empoleon a niche over the others. but it was becoming apparent that the flaws it had since release was slowly pushing it down the iceberg of viability. Generation 7 did little to fix the problem and instead decided to add more problems in the form of new viable water types. Come in. Hey boss, I wanted to talk with you about something. Oh hey, Samurott, sit down. I'm Empoleon, actually. See, I was just wondering if I could get a buff, because I'm kinda struggling at the moment. Oh yeah, sure, no problem. We're just a little busy right now, giving the most viable water starter in our history a brand new form that's stronger than Mega Evolution, but we'll get back to you eventually. Alright, sure thing. Good. Now leave. And 1 year later, Empoleon's wish would come true. It would receive a buff in the form of an expanded physical move pool, liquidation, throat chop, and power trip. Now we're talking. More physical options are exactly what Empoleon needed to keep up with this ever-increasing power creep. Please, someone help this penguin. As the Nintendo Switch era of Pokemon got underway, Empoleon was in prison for the majority of the 8th generation, serving a 2-year sentence for tax evasion. They would be freed by Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, where it enjoyed a battlefield where half the Pokemon that are better than it ceased to exist. Maybe in an alternate universe where the Sinnoh remakes weren't absolute cheeks, this is where we would have got a Mega Empoleon that would have gone on to be one of the best water types of all time. But instead, we got nothing noteworthy in terms of buffs. And before you ask, yes, 15 years later, Empoleon still gets Sword Stance by level up. Oh, brother! Instead, it would be Pokemon Legends Arceus that revisited the Sinnoh starters and gave them some TLC. Since Generation 7, each set of starters has been given a signature move that only they could learn via level up. And it appeared the Llama Goat wanted the Sinnoh starters in on the action. Torterra got a ground-type version of Close Combat, Infernape got a fire-type version of Outrage, and Empoleon got a water-type version of Flare Blitz. Top 10 times gaming companies went too far. Number 1, right now. This has to be a sick inside joke a handful of the Game Freak employees have, because any buff this guy gets is on the wrong side of the physical special split. I'm so angry, I'm going to take my rage out on these Japanese Piplups that have the event move Roost on them, and that will actually greatly improve Empoleon's viability by giving it the recovery it so desperately needed. Wait. That doesn't actually sound that bad. Arceus giveth, Arceus taketh, because this one change would drastically improve Empoleon's viability, as soon as it managed to bust out of a game with 0 PvP. Fast forward a year to the second Pokemon Scarlet and Violet DLC. Every single starter Pokemon in history would be let out of daycare and added to the game, meaning that Piplups with Roosts could be shipped off from Legends Arceus for use in online battles. Now it's important to remember that the ever-increasing power creep would not make Empoleon into the GOAT overnight, especially with the amount of times you could use Roost being cut in half the same generation, but it was just enough to stop it from falling off entirely. But while the Roost edition had been expected for some time, no one could anticipate what other change lay just around the corner. After 10 long hard years, it finally seemed that Operation Physical was over. Empoleon's hidden ability was swapped to Competitive, the special attack boosting version of Defiant. Again, this was far too little too late to make Empoleon into Landorus Furion. Instead of lamenting on what could have been if these buffs had been received earlier, we should cherish the moments we have right now. Unless it's this very moment, because you should subscribe to the channel instead.